Welcome back to another episode of the Rentvesting podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. On today's show, I have with me Gennavieve Lyons from Lyons Property Mentoring. Genevieve, she's a fellow rentvestor, so she outlines what her investment strategy is, and she also provides a bit of a breakdown on how to invest in the United States, what the differences are, and the associated risks. So, let's get to it. Genevieve, hi. Thanks for coming back onto the Rentvesting podcast. How have you been keeping?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me back.
Hey, no problems at all. So for listeners' benefits, perhaps for those who missed out on our previous podcast that we did together, why don't you just share a little bit about what it is that you actually do?
Well, I basically live and breathe all things property investing. It's one of the main reasons why I get up in the morning. I am so truly passionate about it. It's definitely my calling. So I'm an investor myself. I have property here in Australia and in the US. And I've now also started the company Lyons Property Mentoring, where I help mentor and educate people to be able to achieve the same sort of results.
Great. And from our previous conversations, you've just more recently come back from the States where you've been tackling a project over there. What did you actually do?
I'm very hands-on. I'm not one that, I like to travel and I have my laptop and that's how I do all my work. So I'm not one to sit in an office. So the opportunity arose, and it was something I'd been considering for a while, to actually head over to the States, where my strategy there is to flip properties. So you buy them more run down, you renovate them, and you sell them in quite quickly. So I was over there for about 2 months or so, and I think within about 25 days I had this whole duplex renovated. So I actually got there, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work with the actual things that I could do. Yeah. And then obviously you get the people into, as much as I'd like to say I'm an expert in everything, you've got to get the tradies in to do the right things. Yeah. But so I got to do a bit of traveling while I was there as well, but it was really good to actually get in the process myself and get the results that I want. I'm a little bit of a control freak like that.
I can see a future TV series around
right.
Lyons for US property flipping Australian edition or something like that.
There was actually quite a few people that said that when we were over there.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll see me and they'll kind of look at me and go, is she serious? Like, what is she actually doing here? And then they'll see me get to work and they're like, oh, okay, should we be filming this? I've already got my vlog and I already did a lot of it, but obviously that was a rough kind of draft in comparison. But yeah, it's such a great way of, I love those shows. You can just sit and watch all those property renovating and investing shows for hours if you're someone like me.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's definitely something that I'd love to do down the track.
I can see it happening for sure. Now
you'll come back and you'll be like, I told you, Jenna.
Yeah.
I started this. I got the ball rolling.
I called it. I'll if I've got introductions in the media, I'll make it happen.
Please do.
So you're a rentvestor yourself. What's your actual strategy? Why do you choose to rentvest? And perhaps if you don't mind sharing, how do you go about doing what you do?
Absolutely. I'm very open about this one because I actually get that a lot given how much I travel. People ask me, basically whenever I have coffee with someone these days, they go, so Jenna, where do you live now? And it's not actually, I'm getting to the point now where I'm thinking, am I homeless? I'm just not quite sure where I'm actually at. Because I'm either renting or I'm in, say, renting or share housing or something like that, because I'm always on the move, which is why I'm such a huge advocate for the whole rentvesting concept, because based on that, people would think that I mustn't have, I guess, much going for me to a degree. But it's no, I own more than enough properties. I just don't happen to live in any of them myself. So when I was in Perth, for example, I rented on the beach because that was my lifestyle choice. That was something I actually wanted. But if I was to actually own the property that I lived in, it would be way overcapitalized and extremely negatively geared. And that's not going to help me with the cash flow that I need to be able to continue to travel. So it's just so much easier, and definitely a concept I recommend. Rent where you want to actually be and then invest your money in places that are actually going to get you better results.
So are you predominantly focused on overseas investing or these flip type projects in the States, or?
I like the challenge of what America provides. So I like the idea of, and it's a great excuse to travel, is it not? Like, I still got to go to Universal Studios for my birthday, and I'd go to Chicago and LA, and like, there's so much, opportunity there. But I definitely, the market is a lot more stable and a lot easier to get into, obviously, being an Australian citizen here. So my strategy here is to buy and hold, but then I still like my little projects that I do overseas as well. And I might look at other countries as well. It may not always necessarily be America. Like, I've got a block in Scotland as well, but that just sits there. But no, America is a really, obviously, with the turmoil that they've gone through in terms of the property market, it was just really good opportunities and everything just happened to line up. And yeah, it's a really great experience. So I will continue to do both for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So why do you flip in the States as opposed to buying and holding?
Yes, that is a really good question. And it took me a little while to work this one out. Obviously, you learn a lot through experience. My main reasonings for that is obviously being so far away, you have that extra level of difficulty trying to actually manage the property. Even though you can have great property management, and I talk to them on basically a weekly basis for the properties I have there. However, it is that little bit harder to manage, and also they've got such different laws. For example, tenants are, what's the best way to put it without offending anybody? Landlords are not as well protected in America as what they are in Australia. For example, in Australia, when a tenant leaves, that house needs to be left in the condition that they basically walked into it. Whereas in America, I've cleaned up multiple trashed properties when tenants have just gone, no, I've had enough, and they basically just walk. So there's dealing with the tenant side of things. Obviously, it's going to depend on what area you're in and what socioeconomical people you've got in your thing. I'm trying to sound as nice as possible. But basically, I've had really bad tenants.
Yeah. And
it all comes down to the experience you've had. Some people are going to leave things amazing and others aren't, but there's just the different tenancy laws there that make it easier to, if you remove tenants from the equation completely, you go into a rundown property, it's vacant, you get to renovate it, and then you put it straight back on the market. You're dealing with less people. There's less people involved to slow things down. And it just gets the quick lump sums of money rather than the passive income, which is what I can bring back to Australia and then do your buy and holds here, where it's a bit easier to manage.
Okay.
And you're better protected.
So investing in the States is seeming to come into vogue a little bit, and I guess that's because of maybe affordability and people looking outside of the domestic market in order to do as you're doing and find other ways of creating new revenue streams. So through your experience, would you be able to share with us perhaps a quick breakdown of how to tap into the States?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, the biggest window of opportunity for this was something like you said, it's only now people are a bit more, they've heard about it or they're a little bit more accepting. But I purchased my first US property, what are we now? We're now 2017, about 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I started when I was 21. So I got on this bandwagon when it was only first starting, and a lot of people thought I was going to lose a lot of money and be doing something very wrong because they didn't understand it yet. However, back then, prices were even cheaper than what they are now, and the currency was dollar for dollar.
Yes.
So immediately that makes a big difference. So anything I've made while I transferred the money over during that time, it now, what are we at? We're about the 70 or so cents. So I can get a good 25% increase on my money purely from that alone. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you need to look at is understanding the exchange rate if you're going to be sending money over there to begin a venture like this. Obviously, that's going to be your hardest part to begin with, is because the American dollar is so much stronger than ours, it's going to, you're going to lose that little bit to start off with. So you're going to have to be prepared to accept that when you first enter in. And then in addition to that, you're going to need your bank accounts. And I suggest that people go over there when they want to make this stuff happen. I tried to avoid it for as long as possible, and now I wish I'd just bought the ticket and done it, because you can do a little bit of the groundwork and the due diligence you need in terms of your suburbs and your cities, things like that, while you're over there. So just go over there for a week, set up some bank accounts, meet some people, start building your team. So you're going to need your property manager. Most likely your real estate agent can be the same person. And then also it's good to know your bank people because you might want to look at getting American finance down the track. And then also you're going to need your accountant because you've got to do American tax returns in addition to your Australian tax returns. So there is a lot of different things that you need to consider. Obviously, the fact that they speak English is going to be a really great start, but there's still a lot of different terms that you need to adjust to. That's why you need that team there, because I even still have things where I'll talk to my property manager and go, so what do you actually mean by this? Because we'll have, yeah, exactly. Like they said, what did I have? One of the biggest ones I had was they were talking about their property taxes. I needed to pay property taxes, right? And I go, yeah, I gave that to my accountant. Like I sort all that. I do that every year. That's fine. And he was like, no, Jenna, when we say property taxes, he's like, yeah, that's like your income tax or whatnot. Your property taxes are what we call the rates. Mm-hmm. So it was your rates notice. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's completely, your property taxes are what you pay for like someone collecting the rubbish. Like it was, just little things like that. I'm like, no, we don't call it that. So I thought I'd already paid it. So it's just little things. It's just getting used to stuff like that. But if you're open enough and you're willing to take on all those different challenges that come with something like this, it can be a really exciting and really profitable experience.
So what would be the main risks involved in looking at this, or from the experience that you've had, or the benefit of hindsight, even better, what would perhaps you do differently?
Isn't hindsight beautiful?
It is.
When I was actually over this year, I had a couple of clients approach me that also happened to have US property, and they'd had a lot of problems with them. And I said, look, they all happen to be in the same city that I was going to be in. So I said, look, I'll go have a look at these properties for you. So I spoke to their property manager and made some plans to go have a look at these houses. And they had seen them basically sight unseen. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for doing the facts and figures, but you've really got to have that trust or that second opinion from someone who's a lot more unbiased and not just trying to sell the property, because they've gotten photos of these properties, right, that they looked great. They sent me the photos of these properties and they looked really good. However, it was something as simple as, say, when you actually put the photos together, the actual layout of the house was not appealing to tenants. So therefore it was harder to rent. And they were looking at the photos going, but it looks so great. What's the problem? And it's just little things like that. It's getting a bit more of a second opinion on things like that as well, because if you're not there to actually view the property, something as simple as looking at photos, it makes sense in doing the numbers. But if you can't get the tenant in because the layout of the house isn't right, then it defeats the purpose of all the numbers, doesn't it?
Sure. How much time do you actually need to spend on the ground then to make these investments viable?
Well, I don't think it needs to be that much. Like the first time I went over to America, I was literally there a week. Yeah. And I got so much done, and just being there, just for that tiny amount of time, really opens your eyes to so many different processes and areas. And even, I'd already bought prior to that. I did buy based on photos and numbers and happened to get lucky. Even though I've gone over and renovated, it was still a good property, especially compared to the places that I've seen now for some of these unfortunate people that, that just bought from people who were trying to bulk sell these items to Australians who weren't educated enough, as they should be. Mm. So it doesn't need to be long as you're there with a plan and you're there to get some results.
Great. So what's in store for the remainder of the year for you, Genevieve?
Well, the year's only just started, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a blank canvas.
Yeah.
I got asked this question recently, and I really enjoyed 2016. It was a really, really good year for me for both my business, for my property ventures, for myself. So this year, I think my plan is everything I'm already doing, just next level.
Next level.
Everything I'm doing, but harder, faster, better results.
Great.
No pressure.
I know through your coaching ring that you have one part of it is around investing and property and finances and so forth, and the other element is based around mindset. So
absolutely.
Considering that we're more than a week into the new year, I heard that it's probably around about the 15-day mark, so the 15th of January is probably a key milestone because most people have reneged on their promises or New Year's resolutions that they've made. So, from your perspective, what do people need to do to, make sure they take this year to the next level?
It's funny. I actually posted a bit of a blog post on my social media about this at the start of the year. How there's always this at the start of the year. There's always this new how you can feel the energy because everyone's like, yeah, it's the new year. I'm going to get results and everything's going to be amazing. And you can sense that everyone's got this a bit more of an energetic, positive vibe towards life. And then by February, it's like, ooh, yeah. And it just kind of disappears. So I put a bit of this blog post together for everyone who follows my socials, and it was basically like, if you actually wanted these results and you wanted these goals, you would have set them on, say, like a Tuesday in July. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's the first of the year or not. If you really want them and you're really going to push for them, it shouldn't matter what time it is. You can set them on the 10th of January now if you want. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's the first or not if you're actually driven enough to achieve them in the first place. So many people go, oh yeah, I'm going to do it on this year at this time. And then once that fades, chances are they're going to wait a whole nother year before they actually start to redo that goal. And it's just so much time that is wasted. So I think my advice to people when it comes to their New Year's resolutions is essentially set a resolution so that the goal is for next year. You don't have to set resolutions because you've taught yourself to just go, okay, this is what I want to achieve. So you wake up in the morning and do it rather than waiting for a whole new year to start.
Yeah. Well, setting something that actually has some purpose behind it, gives it some meaning to motivate you to actually get out of bed and do it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, Genevieve, thank you once again for joining us on the Rentvesting podcast. It's always great to have you onto the show. And for our listeners, how can they find out more about your coaching ring?
Well, the training ring you can find at lyonspropertymentoring.com, where I give weekly videos in depth into all different topics regarding property investing and mindset, which is essentially the platform I would have wanted when I first started my investing journey. That's what I've based it on. It's pretty much a go-to where you're just going to learn everything you need, and then it's got the support groups and the activities and the exercises, everything you need to go. So that's lyonspropertymentoring.com. And then also if you search for Gennavieve Lyons or Lyons Property Mentoring across every social media and also YouTube, I post a lot of free content. So there's always regular videos on all different, like little videos, little sneak peeks that can help get people motivated and get them a little bit more educated around all things property.
Great stuff. Genevieve, thanks once again, and look forward to chatting again sometime later in the year.
Of course. Thank you.
See you later. Bye. So there you have it. That's a quick 101 on how to invest in the United States. Thank you very much, Gennavieve Lyons, for making the contribution and giving up your time once again to join us onto the podcast. For listeners, I would highly encourage you to look up Genevieve across any of the social platforms. She is very active and posts some awesome content on a very regular basis. Also, encourage you to also subscribe to this podcast because we have some very exciting announcements that we will be making via rentvesting.com.au and using the podcast to make those announcements as well. And look, it's all about really inspiring individuals to continue to enjoy the flexibility that they have through renting, whilst also inspiring them to take action and invest the money that they can afford to grow an asset base and create the comfort in life that everyone actually deserves. So that's it for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week. We've got another awesome guest lined up. But until then, bye-bye.